Are we innately promiscuous or are we innately monogamous? Because you can make cases for the fact that, men are ejaculate and evacuate, and we are. And women can be sexually opportunistic because a good strategy for women is to cuckold men. That's why you have mate guarding. That's why your father, like fathers will technically mate guard, will protect their daughters from outsiders, from men who want to mate with her because she doesn't know any better, or they'll try to rape her or whatever. That's why you get family tribal protection of the women. Like brothers will defend the sister. Remember that kid who got in the took on that big rabid pit bull and got all chewed up on the face. He's like, I'm proud of my scars. I saved my sister. That right there, that's a form of mate guarding. It's not mate guarding in the sense that he's going to reproduce with his sister, obviously, but it is genetic line guarding. Let's just say that. Like I had to protect my sister because there was a rabid animal and I saved her from that. And it's the same kind of idea, like protection instinct. There's a protection instinct in men when it comes to children and it comes to women, because it had to be an integral part of human nature. Because if not, women are the most vulnerable sex, and if men weren't there to protect them and invest in their own progeny, that would leave women very, very vulnerable. That's why I say women are the vulnerable sex. If they didn't have a community to help them, like a strength in numbers, tribalism is a result of the fact that women are the vulnerable sex. It takes 9 months to gestate a child, and it takes another 7 years, 10 years to raise that child to self-sufficiency. Very simple mathematical facts. And so that's why, ladies, you are the vulnerable sex. That's why you feel the way you do. That's why you get scared at things. I got that question earlier on. Okay. So is it a reproductive strategy? So the reproductive, the conflict you're feeling right here, the reason why you're having this question is because you can see that in some cases, promiscuity it's everywhere, right? I mean, look at OnlyFans. People are simping for these girls left and right. Ejaculate and evacuate. It made sense. That's why guys get hard at the blow of a wind, right? Like you see a half naked girl, it triggers the part of men's brains that is associated with tool use. And we know what tools you want to use. And you see a centerfold, a half naked girl, and you get a hard on, right? Especially if you're young, you're in your teens, right? You're swimming in the hormones. Yeah, ejaculate and evacuate, because that was the most efficient, pragmatic, down to fuck, right? There you go. Mode 1 right there. You hit it and quit it. Ejaculate and evacuate. That's why that makes sense. But you can't build the race on that, particularly if a race or species, I should say, that is dependent on intelligence. And this is if you read my book, there's a part in there, it's called the big head babies. And the big head babies is that for a species like us that relies on our intelligence, you have to start the brain process, cooking a brain early in gestation. And that means you're going to have a bigger head. And that means that baby's going to be effectively helpless when it comes out of the womb. In fact, effectively helpless until it's probably about 6 or 7, maybe 8 years old. Won't be able to defend itself, won't be able to run away, won't be able to use its antlers or its teeth or whatever else. It's dependent on its intelligence, but it has to get to the point where it's going to be survivable. You need a human male to protect the women, to protect the females. That's why we're built for combat. That's why we can throw things better. I mean, one of the reasons. That's why we have better spatial recognition. That's why we are what we are. We're more different than we are alike. But again, what's the best, most pragmatic reproductive strategy? It depends on the environment. Are you R selected or are you K selected? I've argued that men are innately R selected, meaning we want to hit it. It is in our genetic best interest to mate with unlimited access to unlimited sexuality. That's why pornography is that's why we cater to that. That's why we can commodify porn for guys. Free, ubiquitous, 4K streaming, get it anytime you want. That's why. For women, we pander to women in a gynocentric social order, because anything that takes away choice or anything that in any way challenges women's ability to have control over their sexual selection, that's what makes them feel bad. That's why Myron and Fresh had that argument with this girl, because the real fear is that you're taking away sexual selectivity from that girl, right? She should still I didn't mention this. What's the opposite? What's the cure? What's the solution to that problem? Oh, men should never feel like they're owed sex. Okay, fine. but men should always provide and give women dates and take them to dinner and be foodie calls and be sugar daddies. And so that's the opposite side of that coin, by the way. It's like, you should never expect sex. Okay, but I should always be able to expect you to be a perfect gentleman, not make me feel bad, pay for dates and pay for everything else. And I'm entitled to your resources, but you're never entitled to sex. But that makes perfect sense in a gynocentric social order. It makes no sense from a patriarchal social order. It makes no sense from a pragmatic, if it's a transactional thing, makes no sense whatsoever. But it does if you've been raised and acculturated in a society that prioritizes the female experience above every fucking thing else. Everything. That's why she doesn't get it. That's why it's not even an afterthought. I don't understand why you guys aren't offended too. I can't understand how you even came to that. Yeah, of course you don't, because you've been acculturated in a gynocentric social order that has taught you that men are never entitled to sex. Well, they're not, but that doesn't mean that you're entitled to his shit. And that doesn't mean that you shouldn't be able to be the guy that enforces those boundaries. How you go about doing that is really up to you as a guy. You want to do it directly, you want to do it indirectly. I would suggest indirectly, simply because you're never going to teach them jack shit in a gynocentric social order. Women don't learn shit, and they don't want to be told shit. I love Fresh and Fit. I love the format. I love being able to bring women on and sort of like educate the masses as a result of that. But at the end of that show, women don't want to be told shit. They don't want to learn shit. I'm never going to learn shit. So that's that. The thing is, so are we really promiscuous or are we really monogamous? Women would like to say, oh, we're innately monogamous. And in a sense, we kind of have to be, because we have to invest in our progeny. Otherwise they die, or at least in our ancestral past, they died. So what are we? Are we monogamous or are we promiscuous? I'd say both. I don't see why the one has to be one or the other. What works better at which time? What sex, what gender is defining the social order at that particular time? Then you'll find out. Then you'll find out whether we're innately this or we're innately that. And in The Ape That Understood the Universe, by Steve Stuart Williams, he makes that case. Are we monogamous? Well, we can be. We can be monogamous, and we can be promiscuous. We can be both. That's just the thing. Are we innately one or the other? I don't know. Innate. You could make an argument for either side. It's just what works best. And I think that in the past, monogamy, at least temporary monogamy, worked the best. And then of course, the memes are, well, you should stay with your wife and provide for her. And then you have more kids and you have a good woman who's willing to breed with you and willing to reproduce with you. And then you form a tribe. And that's really where tribalism comes from. Your first tribe is your family. Your first interest, your first protection, your first priority is your own genetic line. Like I was saying before, like organisms are their own are their vehicles for the alleles, for their DNA. That's why you will save you'll take a bullet for your daughter or your son before you'll take a bullet for you. And you might still do it, but you'll take a bullet for your niece or your nephew, or you'll take a bullet for your niece or nephew before you'll take a bullet for your best friend or your best friend's daughter or your best friend's whatever, and on down the hierarchy, right? And remember, men are very regimented, very hierarchy. Everything's a dominance hierarchy. It's based. The reason for that is because it's based on your loyalties to whatever your genetic interests are. That's how you get tribalism. That's why human beings are tribalistic. It's not a bug. It is a feature. Deal with it. Does a woman who see the father as a beta leave him and kids too? What about the mother that end the kids' lives? Is that because the father was an uber beta? I don't know. It's hard to say. It could be that a woman has a lessened interest in the genes of a guy that she sees as not being her optimal best. The way you can see this, Zoidberger, is you can see this in the fact that, like, when this is thought mommy's in the club is what this thought mommy's in the club. That's why that's funny. Why is it that, and Chris Rock has this, why is it that a woman has two kids, she got a babysitter, and she's in the club on a Wednesday night at 2 a.m. Why won't you not be at home with your children? Because on some level of consciousness, and this is true of, like, even women who are in, like, they don't have to be married to beta men like that, or single mommies. They just want to have that. They want to find the bigger, better deal. They want to find the guy who is hypergamously optimal. And you probably would not have seen this woman prior to the sexual revolution. I thought mommies in the club, right? You would not see them in the sexual marketplace prior to the sexual revolution, because we didn't have, hormonal birth control. We didn't have all of the social conventions that came as a result of that, and the sexual revolution and everything else that is fallout from that. You wouldn't have seen that in prior ages. You might have seen here and there, right? But it wasn't as accepted. It's accepted today because we live in a gynocentric social order that wants to maximize women's reproductive potential. And it's everything for like I said, it's all about the babies, but it's also about optimizing hypergamy. So if a woman can trade up, if she says, you know what, I'm going to divorce this beta screwball, and I don't care if I've had kids with him, I'm going to get with this millionaire. I've seen it happen in my own life, right? I've seen this happen with my own sister-in-law, right? Trade up. It doesn't matter that if the beta is the beta and this guy's the alpha, and that's what even perceptually, he doesn't even have to be that. She has to just believe that he is. And she has genuine desire for that alpha. She's going to, people, oh, well, she's just going to bail on me. She might. In the past, because women were dependent for men on provisioning, protection, and parental investment, it was a much lower instance of that. But now it's probably different because we prioritize women's sexual selectivity above everything else.